In the meantime, let's talk to Joe in Kansas. Joe, you're live with Eric. How's it going?
Hi, Eric.
Hey.
Just quick heads up, I'm in my car, so I apologize if there's other noise.
If it gets too bad, I may need to end the call because just out of consideration for our podcast listeners, but we're going to do our best together.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Well, what do you want to talk about today?
I had questions. I was just talking about this with a buddy about maybe a week or two ago, and I had questions and thoughts about what I guess you would call some of the softer forms of atheism, or softer forms of theism, rather.
Okay.
That being deism, pantheism, those kinds of things.
And just to clarify for people who are watching, it says that you are a theist. You're a believer calling in, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I love that you want to talk to an atheist about this. That is really cool, Joe.
I am deistic, and I describe it as hard deism. I don't believe in miracles. Don't follow any texts. Don't believe in prayer, the supernatural, any of that. But my belief, I guess, just the way I normally describe it is how Thomas Aquinas described the prime mover, the unmoved mover.
Okay. So question: can I explore that just a little bit for the viewer?
Sure.
Okay. So when I think of the prime mover or the unmoved mover, the idea, and it's funny, I created a little fiction series that I wrote about when I was in high school about the idea of a God that created the universe and just kind of wandered away.
That is my exact belief. It created the universe. It created the universe. That is the first and only action the God, he, she, it took.
So I've got questions for you about that.
Okay.
Would it be a deity if it was incapable of thought?
If it was incapable of thought?
Mm-hmm. Or consciousness at all? Does it have to be conscious?
I don't know. Good question.
And the evidence that I would give of that is if you look at the sand on the beach, that sand is there due to erosion, not due to a conscious effort to create sand. We can look at different complex systems like the water cycle and see that those complex systems aren't reliant upon a thinking agent. They're just reliant upon physics. And so when I'm thinking of something like the universe, popping into existence, my first question is, does a thinking agent need to, does it need to have consciousness? And if it does, then I would get the deism part. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, but I feel like, if I can clarify this for a minute, I feel like my deism goes into it's the creation of the universe was the deity's, whatever it is, was the deity's first and only interaction with the universe. And when I say that, I'm comfortable with saying God didn't. A deity did not create gravity or the laws of physics.
Hey, Joe.
Those things. Yes.
Were you possibly holding your thumb over the mic? For some reason, you got really fuzzy, and I couldn't hear you, and I didn't want to let you keep going and then ask you to repeat all of that over again.
Okay. I don't think I was.
I got really fuzzy for a second. Could you say that over? Because I'm not going to be able to engage with that. It sounded like all vowels.
Okay.
Okay.
I apologize. I might be in a weird signal spot.
I got you. If you get to a place where you can safely park, I would sincerely appreciate it.
It's I am stationary. So
okay, good.
But just to clarify on my deism, I do I believe that a deity, whatever it might be, created the universe. But I should clarify, that the creation of the universe was the God, whatever, was the God's first and only act in regards to the universe. And and I don't believe that God or whatever it was created, gravity or the laws of physics or any of that kind of stuff. I'm perfectly fine with saying that, those things just exist.
Couldn't be any other way.
What? Right, yes, the four fundamental forces.
Sure. Gosh, I love the fact that I can't tell you how many times I've gotten caught up in conversations where people want to pretend like those forces, those fundamental forces, somehow have levers attached. So I appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that for people who are wondering why Joe made that distinction. It's because a lot of people get caught up on thinking that it could be any other way when we don't have any evidence that that's the case.
Right.
But specifically, I kind of want to bring it back to the idea of, does it need to have consciousness?
I don't think it does.
So just in the off chance that it didn't, if it didn't have consciousness, in the same way that a rock rolling down the hill, is all the rock has done. The rock didn't intend to, it just happened, right? Would you still consider that a deity?
I don't know. See, that's my thing. I believe it exists, but it's not something I follow really. It doesn't affect my life at all.
Yeah.
It's just something that I believe, something that I think.
No, I got you. I'm not too far from you, man. And really where I'm at is, I'm a lay person. I'm not a physicist, and I'm definitely not an astrophysicist. And I don't want to talk out of my butt and do the whole, subject dirty. But if the universe had a beginning, if it did, okay. If we want to talk about, T=1 at the beginning of time when the Big Bang or that first moment happened, right? I'm willing to grant that. What I'm unwilling to grant, though, is the idea that a consciousness, right, a mind, can exist without a brain.
Right.
And on top of that, the idea that anything can exist, I'm using quotes on this one, exist without time or space to begin with. And and because of that, I have to imagine that I just want to finish really quick, because then I'll be able to finish that point. I imagine that if the universe began to exist, then my point that I would stop on is, there's no way it could have been anything but just what happened. Like I would not find no reason to ascribe consciousness, intent, or anything else to it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
If I could circle back just for a moment.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned time and space. That's something that I've thought about a lot just in the last couple of years. Atheist YouTuber who goes, channel's name is TMM, talks about that a lot. And I love the way he describes, time and space, saying that, if a God is a timeless, spaceless entity, what you're effectively saying is it has existed nowhere and never.
Yeah. Essentially, by definition. Yeah.
Right. And I guess part of the reason I landed on deism, like how I reconcile that with deism, but also not having any beliefs in the supernatural, et cetera, is that my is that the universe is, by our current knowledge, around 13.7 billion years, and the Big Bang is the most widely understood way that it
happened
came into being.
Sure.
Right. And it's normally referred to that the Big Bang sprung from or began as the singularity, the infinitesimally tiny point of existence, all energy in the universe condensed into one tiny speck. And my thing is, if time and space began when the Big Bang occurred, if that was t equals 1, then I feel like almost by definition that then we get into the question of, was the singularity before the Big Bang? Because if it was, that means the singularity never existed.
Well, and here's the worst part of it. The concept of,
and again,
before.
I'm not a physicist either.
No. So... I know. I feel like I need to smoke a blunt with you and just talk about this in particular because, Joe, without time, the concept of before makes no sense. And that's when I throw my hands up in the air and say, this is a job for people smarter than me. But I kind of want to circle around. It sounds like you and I agree on almost everything. Why are you still holding on to deism, and why? Like, it sounds, it's confusing to me, and I don't know why. Could you help me out here?
It gets into what I just described. It's how I reconcile the two.
But does it really reconcile it? Because I feel like the more,
right,
at least honest for me, response would be to say, I don't know, but sure, I know that it couldn't be an acting conscious thing. And because it couldn't be an acting conscious thing, that rules out deism altogether, unless you define your deity as something that doesn't have to be conscious. That's why I asked that.
I would say I don't have an exact definition for deity, and I'm perfectly comfortable saying that. I'm perfectly fine with saying that if the deistic God does exist, which I believe it does, then it could be anything or everything. And here's the thing. I guess I just, like, I know that anytime I've ever explained my deism on various forums, YouTube comments, whatever, I inevitably get the things of, this is the pointed out fallacies of special pleading and argument from ignorance. I'm both aware are pretty heavy in my own belief, but I guess
actually, Joe, hold on. I got to stop you right there. I disagree with you. I think you're interacting with bad arguments, because special pleading is saying I'm making a special exception for myself. And it sounds like you're not making a special exception for a deity that lives outside of time and space. That's where special pleading would come in, and you're not doing that. And then the argument from ignorance is specifically saying, I don't understand X, therefore blah, 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 right? Well, and you're not doing that either. And so if somebody's accusing you of that, they're not listening.
Well, it's just, even when they have, and I appreciate what you're saying, but even when they have told me, oh, it's just an argument from ignorance, how come you're not just an agnostic? These questions that I've gotten too many times to count.
Sure.
Is, I guess it's honestly just because I'm comfortable with my beliefs, and I don't think that's why I initially called in to ask about the softer forms of theism, because I feel like too often deism almost gets lumped in with like evangelical Christianity.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, if you believe in if you believe in any god ever, you're just an ignorant jackass, and what's wrong with you? You know,
I hate that, and I understand that there are a lot of people who are angry who leave religion, but I also just, I'm frustrated about it. I guess, I don't know, Joe. I appreciate the honesty is super refreshing. And if you were to ask me, Eric, by your definition, is Joe an atheist? I'd be like, yeah, Joe's an atheist. But could it be that there's more tied in with those definitions of agnosticism or atheism that you maybe
Probably.
don't want to take on yourself? Because we have lots of baggage that we bring to the table. And I know that before I called myself an atheist, I didn't want to. And I realized that it was that way, not because I wasn't an atheist, but because I had so much other baggage tied up in the word that I wasn't comfortable using it. And if this is sounding like condescending, I deeply apologize. I'm not trying to be condescending about it.
No, not at all. And I absolutely get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's worth exploring, but just know this: your stated question about whether or not it's compatible. Joe, not only would I work together with you on things that I think we would have the same conclusions about, things about how we would want religious overreach limited and restricted in government. I think that we could work together in really great ways there. On top of that, Joe, if you ever make it to Austin, I would love to sit down and have a beer with you, man. You sound like a great dude.
Sure.
So if you're wondering whether or not it's compatible, it sounds entirely compatible and maybe just an issue with personal definitions for things like atheism versus deism.
Right.
Yeah. That said, if you never call yourself an atheist, I really don't care. Yeah. But I do have a couple of other callers I want to get to. There was somebody so Joe, because I'm hosting by myself and I'm producing, I've got like 5 different windows up right now.
Yeah, I can imagine it's not a great day today.
I have to imagine that people who are watching, I know that the camera is not a person, so I just feel like, Eric's not making eye contact with the camera. Why? Because I'm trying to make sure that nothing's exploding. I actually got it. Yeah. But there was somebody in the comments, Magir Hine, who said, deism is atheism for gentlemen.
Yeah, I've heard it called sex atheism.
You know what, man? From there, it just sounds like a fun conversation about definitions. But I appreciate that you watch. I appreciate that you're exploring. And I appreciate that you have a level of openness that is rare. And I treasure that. And I really, really think that you're approaching things well, even if we don't come to the same conclusions in the end. I really appreciate the way that you're interacting with it.
Thanks.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for taking my call, Eric.
Absolutely. Take care, Joe. Have a good rest of your day.
You as well.
I like Joe. Joe was nice.